Obviously, you've made East Palestine a major, raised a lot of attention to it. I see where you've talked a lot about and worked a lot about the environmental cleanup. What measures should Congress take to make trains safer? And what do you say to critics who say the Trump administration bears some responsibility in this for rolling back some of the previous train safety measures?
Sure. So let me talk about the cleanup, and then I'll talk about the train cleanup a little bit. So just first of all, in the cleanup, first of all, Norfolk Southern caused this accident. There are toxic chemicals in the ground in East Palestine, and they need to finish the cleanup job. It's really just that simple. When you cause a problem, when you contaminate somebody's community, you have got to do the right thing and finish the cleanup job. They have still not done that. We're going to continue to apply pressure to it. But Norfolk Southern needs to hear loud and clear from me, from every other member of the congressional delegation. They need to do the right thing, do their job, and clean up this community. On the train safety issue, so, a lot of this stuff has gotten politicized. I've heard a lot of accusations that if, the Trump administration had done something different on rail safety, this would have never happened. I think the objective evidence here is that, for example, there was an accusation that they rolled back a particular rule and that led to the train derailment. I think the facts on the ground are actually not that was the case. If you look at the NTSB, which of course is controlled by the Biden administration, they monitor train safety, they investigate train safety. They've said that those rule rollbacks actually did not cause this particular problem. So I think the effort to blame the previous administration is more playing politics than getting to the bottom of what needs to happen. Now on that point, look, I think there are certainly things that we can do on rail safety that will make these things safer. And when, God forbid, you have an accident, we'll make sure that the accidents don't affect the local communities as much. You saw Governor DeWine mention this a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was a very smart point that a lot of these trains are not labeled properly as high hazardous. So when there is a catastrophic crash, a lot of the local residents, the local authorities, the firefighters, they don't know what they're dealing with. And that's a simple labeling issue. I think we need to fix that issue. And I'm going to have some legislation coming out in the next couple of days to do exactly that. But look, there are certainly things that we can do. But to me, what I'm trying to do is look at what went wrong. How do we fix it? I'm not trying to play politics because I don't think that benefits the people of East Palestine.
On that point, a lot of the experts and the former regulators who we've talked to have said it's going to take a law. You can't leave this up to the FRA or the DOT because administrations change. It's going to take Congress actually passing laws to toughen these safety rules. Are you willing to go into that and pass those things?
Well, that's what we try to do when we introduce legislation. I certainly agree that this is not something that we could kick off to the Department of Transportation, especially, frankly, given how Secretary Buttigieg and the Department of Transportation has handled this particular crisis. I do think this is going to require some actual congressional action. I think the American people, and certainly the people of Ohio, should expect that legislators will actually legislate. They won't just sit on their hands and let the federal bureaucracy do everything. So I agree with that. I don't think that we can let the federal bureaucracy do the work here. I don't think that it's in the interest of the American people. I think Congress needs to actually set some good guidelines and set some good rules here.
Do you have any specifics in mind on that?
Well, like I said, just the high hazardous issue that we just talked about. I think there are issues related to the number of crew members you have in each train. There are a number of different issues that we're going to address in some forthcoming legislation. I don't want to list everything that's going to be out there, but certainly when we put some finishing touches on it and get it out there, we'll certainly make you aware of it, and we can talk about it then.
Great. Moving on, the debt ceiling negotiations are underway. Do you think I know the Republican House leadership especially has not said specifically what they'd like to cut. What do you think should be cut if part of these negotiations, and do you think Social Security and Medicaid should be part of those conversations?
Well, look, I don't think Social Security and Medicare should be on the chopping block. I think especially when we're sending $120 billion a year to Ukraine, the idea that we're going to cut people's Social Security and Medicare here in this country strikes me as pretty preposterous. I really think the way that Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, is approaching this is the right way. Look, we have to get the country back on the path to fiscal sanity. We also have to pay our debts as a country. And I think it makes sense for him and the president and other congressional leaders to sit down, hammer out a deal. That's exactly what Kevin McCarthy is proposing. And I'll say this about President Biden. I think there's been a little bit of an attitude from the president that he shouldn't have to negotiate over the debt ceiling increase. And that's just not the way that this works. The American people elected Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. They gave him a congressional majority. They also clearly sent Joe Biden to the White House. So we have an opportunity here to come together, come up with a good deal that puts the country on the right pathway and also pays its debts. And I think that's what we need to do. You can't have the president saying we're not going to negotiate. That's just not how this works.
Last question. The Supreme Court is taking up the issue of college loans.
Sure.
And college loan forgiveness, especially for federally sponsored. What do you think should be done here? Do you favor, what the Biden administration has said, or do you think the Supreme Court should step in and stop this?
Well, I think college is way too expensive and a lot of people are affected by it, but the solution is not to force a bunch of people who didn't go to college to pay the debts for people who did go to college. I think the solution is to force the universities to lower their costs and get back to financial sanity at the college level. And so I hope the Supreme Court takes this up and strikes down this law. I think that it was illegal, but most of all, I think it was unfair. You can't ask people who didn't go to college to pay the debts of people who did go to college. The solution to the college debt crisis is to force the universities to take some measures to get costs under control. It's not to put the burden on everybody else.